Welcome to Feel the Heat, a 5 Reasons Sports Network Miami Heat podcast. Hosted by Allana Tachauer and Michael Christian. This is your one-stop listen for all things Miami Heat culture, past, present, and future, on and off the court.
What's up, y'all, and welcome to episode 5 of Feel the Heat. Today, we have an extra special guest on, Mr. Jason Jackson, Heat legend. Stay tuned for that later on in today's episode. For now, though, we are going to talk about the crazy week that Heat fans experienced. And honestly, Michael, it's been a crazy season. This week, though, might have taken the cake.
This week felt like the culmination of the entire season. I mean, you've been saying all along, the only thing that's consistent about this team is that they are inconsistent. And if this past week did not show that in full force, I don't know what the hell would. I mean, Boston win. Things are looking up. Philadelphia win, right? That poverty franchise over there in that garbage city. Great win for the Heat.
Shots fired.
And then the Milwaukee stuff kind of happens and it all starts going down. And the Detroit game, I guess we can talk about that later. I don't know, but you are the queen. I'm going to call you the queen of claiming this season as inconsistent because I do remember you mentioning that all the way back from January. What did you think of this past week?
I am going to cause a scene right now and say this because I did tweet it and I've had some conversations about it, but I don't think I've hammered it home enough. Honestly, it looked like we lost on purpose to Milwaukee, and I'm not usually one for conspiracies, and I don't actually believe that this organization is generally one to do things purposefully. However, watching that game, there was absolutely nothing going right for us outside of one man, Mr. Kendrick Nunn, the Leo from Chicago. He had 31 points. He was firing on all cylinders. Short of that, the loss to Milwaukee looked planned from start to finish. And I would just like to forget it, especially with the playoffs coming up. Obviously, we bounced back against Detroit, which was nice to see, especially because the kids had some run out there. But did it kind of take away what happened the game before? Not for me anyway.
I'm not on board with the whole it was on purpose thing. Like, I feel like I understand the idea of, well, they beat Milwaukee last year. They feel like they have the upper hand. Milwaukee hasn't seen the Heat yet with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. I just don't think if they would do that on purpose, it makes little to no sense to me. And I'm thinking here and I'm like, okay, you could take a 4-5 seed, probably play against the Knicks or the Hawks. Then you'd end up playing the 76ers in the second round, assuming they win. That's not a guarantee, but I would, bet a lot of money on that if it was the case. I don't know if they'd really sit there and say, if we're going to do this, we want to go through Milwaukee, Brooklyn, 76ers, and then whoever makes it to the finals, because obviously this team's aspiration is finals. On purpose, I wouldn't say so. I think there were reports out there too that Butler tried to play. So I don't know about that.
He did try to play, and I'm not necessarily saying that I even believe my own theory fully, but watching that was the only thing that kept crossing my mind and the only thing I could come up with, because we've had bad games, we've had bad losses, but watching that, I don't even know what I saw. I'm hoping maybe it was just kind of a cleanse before we have to face them in the first round. And honestly, maybe it's to our advantage. Maybe they'll look back in that and think this will be a cakewalk and go into it feeling a little bit more confident that they should. But let's shift to Detroit a little bit. How are you feeling about the kids balling out there?
I mean, they did well. I mean, they did what you'd expect of them, especially considering it was against one of, if not the worst team in the league. Most of the players, I mean, everybody that played scored double figures except for Duncan Robinson, which doesn't really worry you because you know what you have in Duncan Robinson. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see Precious get some run and look good and competent in those minutes as well. He caught the ball consistently, which was nice to see. It's hard to put a lot of stake in that game when really it doesn't matter all that much. And this is the kind of team where those young players need to be contributing right away, not because, they drafted them, quote unquote high, so they need to contribute right away. It's just because that's the stage this team is at. This team is at the point where it's championship or bust, Not saying that, everything is championship, but we're on Jimmy's timeline. You got to figure out how that goes. So it's good to see them get this run, but you'd like to see that happen when they're able to play with the other guys, when they're able to play with Jimmy and Bam by their side. I'm fine having said all those guys in a game that really didn't matter at all. It was good to see them play and play well. I'll be really interested to see if any of them even get playoff minutes, honestly.
Yeah, I think to me, it kind of only further proved that having no summer league and no G League really did stunt the growth of guys like Precious Achiuwa, because obviously when he's out there with like competitiveness and like competitors, he was looking pretty good. But once you put him out there kind of with the big guns, then he can't hold his own. But to your point, it was kind of a throwaway game. I'm glad people got the rest that they needed. Hopefully Tyler's okay, because I know he kind of tweaked his ankle a little bit at the end there, his foot. So didn't love that he was out there for that long. But now it's time to kind of shake the season off and move forward to the playoffs.
And I will say it's kind of crazy that in the past week, I mean, they played the level of competition that they did. Boston, again, was without Jaylen Brown. They didn't have him for those 2 games. But they played the Celtics and then the 76ers and then the Bucks. Like, if that isn't a gauntlet to end your season, I really don't know what is. I mean, the only thing that could have made it tougher would be playing the Nets instead of the Celtics. But you're looking at 2 of the top 3 seeds in the East. It's a crazy way for the season to end. My biggest kind of bummer before we kind of move on to the next topic is this is kind of making me look back on all those games that you really felt the Heat needed to win. And I'm not going to sit here and say that the Heat have no chance against the Bucks. I'm not going to say that the series is over. Honestly, we'll get to that prediction in a second. I think the Heat actually have a pretty good chance. I think they can go out there and win it. But if you think about it, they take one of those games against the Clippers when the Clippers had nobody, which happened twice. They take any of those, the loss against the Warriors. There's a lot of games that it's like, the 1 or 2 made the difference, and they could have been in the 4 or 5 seed, had a little bit smoother ride. I know this team doesn't back down from anyone, but personally, I'm looking back on that like, man, what a missed opportunity. Are you looking at it the same way, or are you just saying, no, forget it, let's just move forward and get into the playoffs?
I feel like if I were to do that, there were so many moments this season that I can kind of hold against them, and I can sit and think about what could have been and what should have been. I'm ready to just move on from this season. I think, I've beat this, I think, enough over the head, but we had no off season. Essentially, it was still a COVID season. We were dealing with injuries and health concerns all year. And so I think, honestly, to me, it's a miracle that we even got into the playoffs. I was confident that we'd at least be in the play-in, if not just completely miss this postseason this year. So I'm happy that we even made it, and whatever happens next. But I think just given everything that we dealt with this season, I'm not going to hold too much of a grudge.
Sure. And so, it kind of locks it up. And I guess, now that I look back, we probably should have done a culture player of the season, but we can do that later when we have some more time to look at it. When the season is actually over, I get the regular season is over, but for the past week, and I'll go first on this one, I don't think there is anybody else who could even come close to deserving culture player of the week. Like our OG, the current father of culture on the roster, Udonis Haslem. He went out there, and I don't even care that he scored a couple points. I don't care about any rebounds that he grabbed. All I care about is that he went out there and he got ejected, because that was beautiful. Dwight Howard is a punk ass. I don't care who he thinks he is. And then Reggie Miller coming through later and saying, oh, Dwight Howard has that championship DNA. Excuse me? First of all, he made to 1 finals with the Magic. Sure, that was a lot of Dwight Howard. I will give him that one for sure. But this past one with the Lakers, nah, bro. Nah, you were the same as like an Eddie Curry. Like, chill.
What, you
got
didn't
no
like his
championship
maroon
DNA.
braids when he was trying to make them Lakers purple? That didn't do it for you?
The only thing that I look back on and regret is that Udonis didn't actually punch him, because that would have been hilarious. And I know UD wanted to, but he was smart. He's like, let me not get this fine. It's okay. I'm just going to like kind of poke at his face, whatever it is.
Savings.
But that was beautiful. I love Udonis Haslem. I love that energy he brings in. And if the Bucks decide to try to punk some of our guys, listen, you bring UD in and they won't mess with him. They'll know to be afraid. So listen, if that wasn't Heat culture, like kind of standing up for yourself, fighting for your guys, all that kind of stuff, I don't know what was. So to UD, the OG, the captain, culture player of the week, sir. I know it means nothing and we don't have an actual award, but if I did, I would send it to his house.
You know what you need to do? I think you should return that Depot jersey and get yourself a UD versus Dwight shirt, because I got one coming in the mail.
Who made the UD versus Dwight shirt?
It's out there if you know where to look.
Who made it? What was the brand?
Don't worry about it. It's exclusive, Michael.
If it was Life brand, that's a no.
Don't worry about where I'm getting my things.
Oh boy, you got it from Life brand. Those people don't even like heat culture. They're just hopping on. Boo. Give me your culture player of the week before you talk more about some t-shirt.
I already mentioned him a little briefly, but Kendrick Nunn has really just stayed consistent in a season full of inconsistency. And listen, his 31 points against the Bucks ended up meaning nothing. I understand that. But at the end of the day, he went out there and he looked good start to finish. You could tell that despite the fact that there was no chance of them winning that game, his energy stayed up, his motivation stayed up. He was out there trying to get his teammates back in it. And I think, first of all, he deserves props for that game, but I think in general, his attitude moving towards the playoffs are exactly what we need for him. So hats off to him, and not just because he's a Leo, not just because he's from Chicago. I don't think anyone at this point should at least be saying anything negative about Kendrick Nunn. He has looked like a completely different player. He's transformed since the beginning of the season. He's been vocal about the fact that he had COVID and that had side effects. There was residual stuff like left over from that. And so having to battle kind of being yanked in and out of rotation, I think he's been amazing, and I think he deserves it this week too.
Agreed. And Kendrick has been through a lot, and I'm sure people can find clips of me not being a big Kendrick Nunn fan. And I was not, and I stand by it. At the time, he was not playing very well.
We're allowed to change our minds on takes?
No, absolutely not. This only me. Just me. Not you.
Okay.
Not you.
You really threw me for a loop there.
Yeah. You'll always be like, one-dimensional Duncan to
right,
me.
Yeah.
I agree with Kendrick looks a lot better. I think the growth that he has shown from season 1 to season 2 was something that nobody expected. And I understand there were a lot of Kendrick Nunn fans out there who said, how could you hate on him? It was his first season, all this. He was an older player. The defense was non-existent. Mm-hmm. And the offense only came one way. So it was hard to get really excited about his play when it seemed like it didn't fit very well with this team. And he has learned to mold his game to this team. He has learned to put more effort in on the defensive end. So hats off to Kendrick Nunn. He has had one heck of a season. It's had a few ups and downs, but it has had higher ups than he has had in his entire career from a personal standpoint. So I am all on board with Kendrick Nunn as Culture Player of the Week. And maybe it's too soon, but maybe even Culture Player of the Year because of that improvement. But season 1
you took the words right out of my mouth. And I do want to say too, I think props need to be given to the organization. Their player development is bar none. Obviously it takes players putting in the work and it takes them wanting to be there. And it isn't for everyone, but I think that, Kendrick Nunn's transformation does speak very highly to the coaching staff and kind of everyone involved. So I think the organization in general deserves a round of applause for that one.
Absolutely. But question, do you think Kendrick would be getting this kind of run had Depot not gotten hurt?
I think that Kendrick still would have been utilized, maybe not as much, but I do think that his value at this point is recognized by Spo and the rest of the guys on the team. I think that had Depot not gotten injured, it still would have taken him a little time to kind of figure out the offense. I think defensively, obviously, that is a void that he would have filled very nicely. Depot, at the end of the day, injuries or not, he puts in the work needed. He is a team player, and I don't think that he would have been selfish out there with the ball. I think he would have taken his time to learn everything with the guys, but I think that Kendrick still had kind of a leg up in that way. I don't think he would have had as big of a role, but things played out how they did.
Yeah, and I only ask because, yes, I am a huge Depot fan, but I will admit, again, hats off to Nunn. He's played well. He deserves the minutes he has. And looking back, it's like, man, maybe it shouldn't have taken that moment. Maybe it shouldn't have taken Depot coming out of the lineup to realize that Nunn deserved more minutes, with the team as it was currently built and everything. So that's the only reason why I brought it up. I mean, on the Depot front, I do have that jersey. I will wear it proudly from now until Victor Oladipo
I think
comes
it
back.
might be time to use that American Express advantage.
Nope.
And put
I'm
that in.
fully leaning into it. I'm gonna wear the Victor Oladipo Miami Heat jersey on every single Heat game day until Victor Oladipo comes back. Now, if Victor Oladipo comes back with another team, so be it. I will wear the jerseys on Heat game days, and when he comes back for whoever he plays for, I will stop wearing it then. Just
You're
because
really
then it's gonna be
committed to
awkward.
this cause.
I just really like Victor Oladipo. I watched him on Masked Singer and he stole my heart, and I got to ride with the guy, like and hold on, I know you're not his biggest fan, but healthy, I think he would have been an incredible asset to this team.
Listen, it's not that I'm not his biggest fan. And again, we got him for basically nothing. So I don't regret that move at all.
You're calling Kelly nothing?
Listen, I love KO. I still miss him sometimes, but I honestly saw this coming and I'm sorry that I was right. And it's super unfortunate. I cannot imagine kind of having him, his air was just taken out. Like he was so excited to come here. Everything was ready. Both parties and both sides seemed very excited. And then all of a sudden, everything came crashing down. So I feel for the guy. I wish him the best. I don't think he's going to be back in a Heat jersey personally. And I think I would be okay with that, but I have nothing against the guy. I want to make that clear.
Just in case he's listening. Is that what that's for?
No, just in case the rest of Heat Twitter decides to come after me like they tend to.
So that if Victor Oladipo does come back next season, that he contributes mightily, people can be like, you remember that one time you said that you didn't like Victor Oladipo? That's what they do. That's what Heat Twitter sounds like to me, actually.
That sounded like the Muppets, and that's exactly how I view Heat Twitter. So that's pretty accurate.
Perfect. Wow, you're really throwing some shots. I love you, Heat Twitter. Don't listen to her. Don't lump me with her, please. Now, what's coming up next for the Miami Heat, Allana?
I'll tell you what's coming up next.
Please do.
A series against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Dun dun dun.
Are you excited? Are you happy about this matchup?
I mean, I would have preferred the Hawks or the Knicks, admittedly. I don't think I would have preferred the Nets. We talked about that. There's something about that team. I feel like once they get it clicking, which can happen literally in an instant, I think they'd be almost unbeatable. I do think the Bucks are beatable, though. It's been a weird season against the Bucks, though.
Mm-hmm.
The Heat are 1-2 against the Bucks. First game, they got absolutely trounced. I don't know if you remember that game. That was all the way back in December. What was that? December, and I'm looking it up, 29th. It was the third game of the season. They lose that game by almost 50. Lost it by 47. They play them the very next night and beat them 119 to 108.
It's all coming back to me now.
Yeah, right? I'm pretty good at this, like remembering stuff. Do you actually remember this though? Because
now I do. It's just I have a trash memory. Anyone who knows me knows that. So it takes a little bit of like coaxing to get me there, but I actually do remember this.
Okay, so fun little test we'll do then. The Heat get trounced. I just don't think there's another word we can use for it. They get trounced by the Bucks.
I think they got murked.
Ooh, murked. That's a good one. 144 to 97. Who was the leading scorer for the Miami Heat that night? It's just a guess. I know you're not actually going to know.
Yeah, now you're asking for too much. Kelly Olynyk?
Wow. Super off. Kelly Olynyk had 5 points. Tyler Hero was the leading scorer.
I was going to say Tyler Hero. I hate when I second guess myself. This is the worst trait of mine in life, and I have a few. This takes the cake.
Picking Kelly Olynyk and not Tyler Hero?
No, second guessing myself, Michael.
Okay, I'm just making sure. He had 23 points, but the next night, the Miami Heat go and beat the Milwaukee Bucks 119 to 108. Who was the leading scorer for the Miami Heat on that night?
Goran?
Wow, you legit got it. It was actually Goran. Yeah, Goran had 26 points. So Jimmy didn't play in any of those games. So it's really hard to put together exactly what the Heat's game plan is going to be. The Bucks are a much different team than then. The Heat are a different team than then. Honestly, the Heat are even a different team than, this last game they played against the Milwaukee Bucks. What are you looking forward to in this series? Like, what do you think the Heat have that could put them over the top with the Bucks?
Here's the thing about Miami, and this has been an always thing, but more so than ever, I think this season, when multiple guys, I'm talking 4+, are fully engaged and doing what they need to do offensively and defensively, we're really hard to stop. When we play team ball, when we have our defensive identity, when threes are falling, I am not scared of anyone. The problem is that doesn't happen night in and night out, and I have no way to predict when and why that will take place. So what I'm looking forward to, honestly, some good basketball. I think that's all any of us can ask for at this point. I think Jimmy's hungry. I think he definitely wants this. I think he's excited to get out there against them. I think Bam has a lot to prove. To be honest, I think Kendrick's going to come out, kind of wanting blood. I do think it's going to be a very exciting series. Does it make me nervous? A little bit. But at this point, we're here. So let's go.
All right. So then I'll give my thoughts on the series and then we can both predict where we think it's going to end up. I think with the Bucks, there's just something about it that the two teams really step up to play one another. Chris Middleton is a player that I don't think gets talked about enough. I'm not saying Chris Middleton is an amazing player, but the dude has this mid-range jumper that is stupidly automatic, and it just infuriates me because nobody shoots that anymore. Like, step out to the 3-point line or go get a dunk, bro. Like, man. So it's just frustrating to watch when he just like steps right into the free throw line, basically, or a little bit to the right or left, and he sinks it almost every time. He's a good player. He's one that I think the Heat need to watch out for because all it takes is him having one good game, and then Giannis is going to do what he usually does. Drew will probably do what he normally does. If Chris Middleton has good games, if he has a good series, I think the Bucks are absolutely going to take this one. I think the reason why the Heat are going to win, and that's kind of, spoilers for my prediction, I think the Heat just know how to play against this team. I think they win the coaching matchup of Spo versus Budenholzer.
Absolutely.
I think the Bucks also have a lot on the line. I think if the Heat lose this series, it's going to be a huge bummer. There's going to be a lot of disappointment. But if the Bucks lose this series, Budenholzer's probably out of the job. I mean, that's another season that Giannis wasn't able to get past, basically anybody that he should have. It would just be a really bad look for them. And I think that might creep into their heads a little bit. And Jimmy and Tyler are going to step up. I know that Tyler will probably be a bit inconsistent here or there, but he likes the spotlight. He loves the attention. He wants to turn it up in these kinds of games. I do think the Heat are going to win this one. And I actually think the Heat are going to win the series in 6 games, not 7. I think they'll find a way to take a hold of the series fairly early. And I mean, if they lose game 1, I'm going to put my foot in my mouth and things may just go downhill from there. But my prediction is genuinely Heat in 6.
Well, I'm trying to find myself at game 1, so I'll try and be a good luck charm for our team out there in Milwaukee. I am going to be a little bit more cautious just because, again, I understand that the playoffs are a different beast and we are a different team than we have been all season now that we're healthy and kind of locked in. But I'm going to say that if we take it, and that is an if, it'll be in 7. I think this is going to be a lot harder than people think. I think this Bucks team, to your point, they do have a lot on the line. The Heat obviously have something to prove because they're coming out of the bubble. They're coming, from being in the finals. But at the end of the day, after a season like this, I don't think that many people are counting on them to do that well, for better or worse. Whereas I think the Bucks definitely have a lot more pressure on them. I think Coach Bud is definitely going to be out of a job if this doesn't go well. And so I think in a sense, they might want it more. Do I think that the Heat still have a good chance? Yes. But I think if they get it done, I think it'll go to 7.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, honestly, I could very easily see this series also going Bucks in 6. I think you can see that as well. I think if the Heat aren't shooting at their best and certain players don't step up the way you expect them to, that could very easily happen. I just think this team knows, and I think you and I both believe this, is they know how to step up when it matters, and they love this kind of stuff. They want, as much as a lot of fans may not want it, they want the smoke. And that's kind of a light preview on what we talked about with Jax, because Jax was really excited about the way this team steps up in those kinds of games. So that'll be a lot of fun. I know we had some Heat Twitter segments we wanted to get to, but we're kind of running short on time, and I want to prioritize a really, really good someone, Chris Bosh. Hall of Fame.
What happened with Chris Bosh this week, Michael?
Hall of Fame inductee. Unfortunately, he is being inducted into the Hall of Fame at the same time as Paul Pierce. That guy sucks.
We don't know who that is. over
No,
here.
I know who he is. I like to know who he is because he sucks. Okay. Boo you, boo the Celtics. Get out of here. But Chris Bosh is making it to the Hall of Fame. A lot of great times with Chris Bosh. Honestly, one of my favorite Heat players of all time. Allana, I'm assuming you love Chris Bosh as well. I mean, if you didn't, I'm going to kick you out of the Zoom.
Who doesn't love Chris Bosh? Chris Bosh, honestly, is a class act both on and off the court. I know a lot of people talk about a lot of Heat guys. And I think the organization in general does kind of know how to pick their men well, but Chris Bosh is in the league of his own. I was absolutely devastated when he went out with those blood clots, and even more so when it was announced that he couldn't return at all. I think a lot of us were brokenhearted, and just knowing that he wasn't near done with us, and in his career in general was really, really just hard to swallow. But I'm so happy that he's doing okay, and I will forever be thankful for everything he did for us.
What is your favorite Chris Bosh play? And I'm going to take out the rebound in game 6 against the Spurs. Can't pick it. Too easy. Give me another one.
Ooh, I don't have specific plays. It's not my game.
That's not your thing?
No, I think he brought something so special to the team. I think that just the way that he really treated everyone like it was a brotherhood. He was really mentoring younger guys. He stepped up in whatever way, both Wade and LeBron needed him to. I think that his relationship with Spo was extremely special. And I don't know, I could literally talk about him all day, but I just think that, for him to have to walk away when he did, and kind of just give it up in the timing that he didn't want to have to do that. It was hard, but again, I think he'll definitely be remembered forever as one of the Heat greats.
Absolutely. I think for me, the play that really sums up Chris Bosh in a way that is both good and a bit unfortunate was against the Portland Trail Blazers. It was a regular season game in December, and LeBron was out. Portland was doing pretty well. I mean, they had a decent team, but the Heat just always looked different when LeBron was out, as you could expect. He hits the game winner, right? He got the pass from Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade gave it behind the back, gives it to Bosh, who has to step even further back from the 3-point line. He sinks the 3. It's a shot that wins the game. I think there was only 1 second left on the clock. What I loved about that moment is watching every teammate's reaction, because everyone on that team absolutely loved CB, and they knew everything that he had to sacrifice and give up to kind of play that third role. Because as great a player as he is, he knew, there's Wade, there's LeBron. It's those two guys, then it's me. And he played his role to a T. And I was so ready and excited to see him get his own team and kind of be more in the front of it all. Him and Wade playing, it was still a good looking team. Losing Chris Bosh sucked so much because I really wanted to see him have his own time with this team. But I think the great thing about Bosh is that he always had those memories, whether it was those plays, the photo bombs on the post-game stuff. Him making it into the Hall of Fame is absolutely deserved. And I think all of Heat Nation was just a giant sigh of relief and just thank you to CB for all he did, because legitimately the Heat maybe don't have that second championship trophy in that Big 3 era, absolutely, if not for Chris Bosh. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jason Jackson. It was an absolutely amazing interview. And if you heard the way Allana and I described culture, we didn't do it any justice compared to what Jax did when he was on with us. It was just absolutely beautiful. It was poetry. I shed a tear as he was explaining his definition of culture and the way this team wants all the smoke. So don't forget, when we come back from the break, Jason Jackson, great listen. Don't miss out. You're listening to Feel the Heat. Before we get to the Jackson interview, just want to let you all know we have some big things lined up for the coming weeks. Fun guests, fun segments, and maybe even a couple bonuses here or there. It's the playoffs, so why not go big? Our next live stream is coming up at the beginning of June, and don't forget to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening. Welcome back to Feel the Heat. It's time to pod, y'all. And if you get that reference, we are joined by none other than Jason Jackson, Heat TV personality. Jason, thank you so much for coming on.
Michael, it is an absolute pleasure. Not bad, by the way, with the stolen property. There will be a cease and desist, though, from the Heat lawyers immediately.
I mean, as long as you said it sounded pretty good. If it's good enough that I need a cease and desist, I will take it.
It's worth possibly getting sued for. I understand.
I'll make sure he practices a little bit.
It's not even mine. Like, if you will, like, think about intellectual property. Like, I over these 17 years, I've come up with a bunch of stuff just to keep it fun and entertaining, something to look forward to. I grew up a really, really big sports fan that watched a lot of television. I loved my guys. The guys that called the game at that time, Allana, they were all dudes. Okay, so I'm not being ridiculous, but in the 70s and 80s, that's what we got, and that was your real life connection to those superheroes that you saw on the grass or on the diamond or on the court. And I take this job super seriously that way, and then I have a lot of fun with it the other way. And now that I've gone through nearly a full generation of Heat fans, like, it's, I get the stuff now. Oh, I've been watching you since I was a kid. Heads up, not a compliment.
Yeah.
I was about to say
makes a brother feel old. Yeah.
I was about to say it, but I can tell you this. I don't know what it would be like to watch the Miami Heat without you on there. So
see, but here's the thing. I'm going to stop you there, Mike. That's an Eric Reed comment, right? Like, there hasn't been a Heat telecast that he hasn't been on. I think he's missed a handful over 33 years. So I'm halfway of that. Like, but for someone, what are you, like 25, 26? How old are you?
27. Yeah, you're basically spot on.
So boom, there it is. Like, you come out, that's exactly the time you start paying attention, right? You're like 10, 11, 12 years old. That's when you start digging in stats. That's when you watch every night. That's when you're tugging and pulling with parents on a Wednesday. Come on, I know the game started at 9, but I got to stay up and watch. That's when that stuff happens. And so all you old 10-year-olds are now freaking 27 and 28. And I got to accept that. What I do love, though, is the connection. We live in a big city with a lot of stuff to do, a lot of pretty people, a lot of shenanigans at the bottom of the Miami River. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
With all that being said, the fact that people still dig their people who bring it to them every single night, that's the one place I don't think is going to change. You guys probably don't watch SportsCenter like I used to 3 times a day. You probably don't watch the Sunday night shows on all the local affiliates like locked in every Sunday.
Sports Extra when
I
can.
Okay, word up. I'm an alum over there from Channel 7, so I get it. But everything has changed. Everything shows up right here. For the listeners, I held up my phone if they're not watching the visual part of it. But with that, the games are never going to change. The game still has to happen. And so I love this role and responsibility.
Yeah, and let me just say that my mom follows the Heat only through me, but the one person that she will never, ever forget is you. We have been talking about you just leading up to this. She is so incredibly excited. For my mom to remember someone's name.
Can she be a part of this situation?
You know what? We have to bring her on next time, because I was telling Michael last episode, Alessandra is becoming kind of a household name over here. But she was just so excited. So
Alessandra?
It is indeed.
How beautiful is that name?
Thank you very much. She will die a little inside after hearing you.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Listen, I'm trending, by the way, to around your mom's age group. So my wife is nervous because I got him around there. But that's good. Keep Sherelle on her toes. That's what she ain't going nowhere. We've been together too long, but I do like somebody with a twinkle in their eye going, I like to watch you at night. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of twinkle in our eyes, the Heat are definitely known for a little twinkle themselves. There is something special about the Heat organization, and I will not bore the listeners again for kind of how I got into being a fan, because the culture was really what drew me in. But how do you define Heat culture?
That the place isn't for everybody. That's the thing. If you're not willing to sacrifice minutes, marquee, and money to be a part of something that potentially could be the thing that defines your entire time as a professional basketball player, there are 28, 29 other places to be. And I don't think that's nasty. I don't think that that's something where you say, it's our way or the highway. There's just a certain way it's been done since 1995. May I curse?
Yes, you may.
Absolutely.
That shit ain't changing. right? Same family, third generation now, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Nick now being our CEO. That hasn't changed. Pat showed up in 95. He's 75. That still hasn't changed. The head coach in his 13th season, the most winning head coach. I don't like the word. I don't think winningest is a word, by the way. So I go.
Yeah, but it sounds cool. I like winningest
though. In Heat history, Heat playoff history, I think he's top 5 winning percentage in postseason history in Eric Spoelstra. I've seen a lot of players come and go in my 17 years. I haven't seen any of the people I just mentioned to you leave the building. And oftentimes when folks leave the building, in my time, outside of Coach Van Gundy, everybody's leaving on to some, and actually things worked out for Stan really well after he left. But I mean, you know what I mean? In the sense of folks are leaving because the branch is just becoming, another extension off of Pat's tree because it's now Spo's tree, right? And the coaches are out in the world off of that tree now with, Dan Craig out in LA, Jawan up in Ann Arbor. There's a couple of assistants here and there that have been a part of things, just not at the height of those guys, but and it's just going to get bigger and stronger. And so, yeah, the culture this is the way we do it. Ain't gonna be any different. Get in shape, the shape of your life, defend your ass off, and enjoy each other's success. I know I'm repeating a lot of Spoisms right now. I hope that's not a drinking game.
Love our Spoisms.
They're the best kind of isms, Jason.
Those things are constant. Did you guys watch? And I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of time, but I'm taking up time. But did you see the joy the frontline rotation players were having when the second and third team were getting busy in the shittiest town in America? It's the only town I've ever been robbed in. So I do not apologize about hating Detroit. Except on the other side of the Detroit River is Windsor, Canada. And there's a place called Jason's. The two of you ever find yourself there, feel free to tell them I sent you.
Michael, it seems like we're going on a trip soon.
Yeah, I will go to Detroit, but just across the border. No other reason. I won't stay long.
Don't spend any time in Detroit, but get over to Windsor. Look for me. You won't be upset. Not at all. I'm not even making any value judgments on either one of you. It'll just be a fun time.
I will go over there and look for Jason's. But it's funny you mentioned Detroit. Detroit now, the team is what it is. We don't have to comment on that. I remember when I first started kind of understanding basketball, Detroit was like this behemoth in the Heat's way. When I first started watching, right? Those early 2000s. They had
like 5 or 6 straight conference finals. And then they got the championship the year that, the rib.
It was crazy. And I remember, but it felt like this team, when they found a way to turn the corner, as the culture kept seeping into the guys that we had, this team really found a way to beat anybody in their way. And there's something about the culture that you just defined, may I say, more beautifully than myself or Allana ever could. What is it about that culture that you think gives this team a certain advantage or leg up in the playoffs? Because I mean, that's when everybody really hunkers down. And it feels like this team hunkers down more than anybody else.
Because they don't care. They don't care who they're playing. They don't care where they're playing. Is it on Bally? Don't care. Is it on Turner? Who cares? Is it on ABC or ESPN? No one cares. And I thought that was such BS initially, because that's just moniker stuff, right? You just say that stuff. Everybody can just get fired up and in it. Jimmy has me believe in everything that comes out of his mouth. Because he sat down in front of our friend Rachel Nichols in Orlando. And what did he say? We're going to the championship. We're going to win it. 2 games away from him being the soothsayer, right? If Jimmy says it, I'm down. Until further notice. All right, so have me back after this run, and we might adjust that a little bit. But Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philly. I was just telling my second son, who's about to go play basketball at FAMU. We're so excited for him. And he was pissed about this run. He wanted to get to the 5-4. I wanted it for different reasons. I was nostalgic. I wanted to play New York, but who cares what I think? I wear makeup and a suit to work. You know what I mean? Who kind of value judgment.
I got to try that out sometime.
Provide, right? But my idea was much more about bringing the late 90s, early 2000s back. And whatever. Who needs it, right? It would have been nice. It would have been fun. But Jordan was just like, Dad, now we got to play Milwaukee and then probably Brooklyn and then probably Philadelphia. I said, you know what Jimmy wants? All three of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's the kind of stuff that's just different, man. Listen, had they had real conversations about an easier path? Probably. But that's not the reality. So let's go.
And you know what? And we're just, we're kind of short on time. We know we have to have you back on here sometime whenever you're available, but I'm going to let you go with this one. You were just saying that's what this team wants. That's where they want to go. Mm-hmm. Give this fan base a rally cry, a statement, something, because a lot of them are thinking, oh, well, there's no chance now. That's a lot of good teams in the way. And I think if there's one thing this team has taught you is never count them out. Give us that soundbite, that piece that people are going to be retweeting and talking about and saying, now I believe in this team because Jax told me and I got this. This team has this.
Yeah, there's something that and a nickel, and that you'll have 5 cents, right? Like that's the deal. The one thing that I love right now about this team is it's together. Like we spent so much time watching this team kind of stagger through the first 15 to 20 games due to injury, due to protocol dynamics. Since then, since that, what was it, 7-14 maybe? Mm-hmm. Like you draw that line, you guys do that math later. I mean, that's 33 and whatever. Like it's pretty strong when they're together. This team's magnificent. I mean, it's almost 60% of the time. Actually, it's over 60% of the time, damn near 70% of the time. When Jimmy is on the floor, that's a Miami Heat victory.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, when he's not on the floor, it's in the low 30s. It's actually
we're not here to talk about that. He'll be on the floor.
But would you sign up for that today, right? That type of assurance that things are going to go well. Milwaukee hasn't seen the Jimmy edition since they had to wave goodbye. So we look forward to the Jimmy edition and everybody in that 4-man bench rotation and all the other cats ready to go. This weekend coming up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the beer is delightful, but we have no fear. Sorry.
Ooh, I have chills, honestly. Sorry. Swear on everything.
Zero fear.
That was beautiful. Jax, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It was an absolute pleasure. We look forward to having you back on here, and we look forward to seeing you and the rest of the Bally Sports Sun team this weekend with the Miami Heat playoffs. Jax, thank you so much, man.
Michael, thank you very much. Yes, please remind everyone, you'll have so many options to watch. Come on. If we're
There's
not
only
on ABC,
one real option.
Yeah, pick the
if we're
right
not
one,
on ABC,
people.
Always on Bally Sports.
Pick the right
Yours
one.
Truly, Eric Reed, John Crotty, Ron Rothstein, Ruth Riley Hunter, the entire Miami Heat broadcast team ready to serve.
Jax, thank you so much for that rally cry, and let's go Heat.
A special thank you to Jason Jackson for hopping on with us. We can't wait to have him on here again. And thank you all for listening. A brand new episode of Clutch Corner will be on Tuesday night, and you can find me and Michael on postgame throughout the playoffs as well.
Thanks for listening to Feel the Heat. Can't get enough of your hosts? Follow Allana at Allana Tachauer, Tachauer, and Michael at Michael5RSN on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe.